The unwanted gift captain. Elena Rodriguez floated outside her ship in the vast emptiness of space, staring at what the Nexari called a gift. The object before her looked like a twisted piece of cosmic garbage, a hulking mass of corroded metal, and broken panels that had been drifting through the void for who knew how long. Solar winds had stripped away whatever paint or coating it once had, leaving behind a patchwork of rust-colored metal and gaping holes where systems had either failed or been torn away. Ambassador Keith Tarr of the Nexari Trade Federation hung beside her in his own environmental suit, his forearms gesturing proudly at the wreckage. The Nexari were known throughout the galaxy as shrewd traders who never gave away anything of value, which made this supposed gift even more suspicious. "This vessel," Kethtar said through the comm system, his voice carrying the musical quality typical of his species, "is over 5,000 years old. It belonged to the ancient Corvani Empire, a civilization that vanished long before your species learned to walk upright. We thought humanity might appreciate having such a historical artifact for your museums." Elena activated her suit's scanning systems and ran a preliminary analysis of the derelict ship. The readings were all wrong. The metal composition showed elements she didn't recognize, and the energy signatures were completely alien. More importantly, her scanners detected massive internal spaces that shouldn't exist in something that looked so small from the outside. "That's very generous of you, Ambassador," Elena replied carefully. "But I have to ask why the Nexari Trade Federation would give away something so valuable. Your people don't usually part with historical artifacts without expecting something in return." Kethatar's silence stretched long enough to make Elena suspicious. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost some of its earlier enthusiasm. "The truth is, Captain Rodriguez, this ship is worthless to us. We've had the galaxy's best engineers examine it for over a century. The technology is so old that none of our modern systems can interface with it. The power source is completely dead. The hull is compromised in dozens of places and the internal systems are corroded beyond repair. It's nothing more than an expensive piece of space junk." Elena's engineer, Marcus Chen, had been listening to the conversation through the squad channel. His voice crackled through her helmet speaker with barely contained excitement. "Captain, you need to get me aboard that thing. My scanners are picking up energy patterns that don't match anything in our databases. This isn't just old technology. It's something completely different." Chief Science Officer Dr. Sarah Kim joined the conversation from their ship's bridge. "Elena, I'm running comparative analysis with our xenoarchaeology databases. The Corvani Empire isn't mentioned in any galactic historical records. If this ship is really from their civilization, it represents a completely unknown chapter of galactic history." Elena made her decision. "Ambassador Kethtar, we accept your gift. Please transmit any technical data you have about the vessel." "There isn't much to transmit," Kethtar replied. "Our engineers couldn't even get past the outer hull. The ship appears to have some kind of integrated security system that prevents unauthorized access. Every attempt to cut through the hull or force entry points has failed. We assumed you might have better luck given your species' reputation for creative problem-solving." 2 hours later, Elena found herself leading a boarding party through what appeared to be the ship's main airlock. The fact that it had opened at all surprised everyone, including Kethtar, who had insisted the ship was completely non-functional. Marcus carried a portable power unit and every scanning device they had, while Dr. Kim documented everything with her recording equipment. The interior of the ship defied expectations. Instead of the cramped, deteriorated corridors they expected, they found themselves in a vast space that seemed to stretch beyond the range of their lights. The walls were covered in patterns that shifted and moved when viewed directly, creating an optical illusion that made it difficult to judge distances or directions. "This is impossible," Marcus whispered, running his scanners along the walls. "According to my measurements, this corridor is over 300 meters long, but the external dimensions of the ship suggest it should be maybe 60 meters from nose to tail." Dr. Kim was examining the wall patterns more closely. "These aren't just decorations. There's some kind of information display system. Look at how they respond to our presence." As she moved her hand near the wall, the patterns shifted and brightened, almost as if they were trying to communicate. Elena activated her comm system to contact their ship. "Bridge, are you getting our telemetry?" Lieutenant Commander Torres responded immediately. "Captain, we're getting your location data, but it doesn't make sense. According to our sensors, you're somehow inside a space that's larger than the ship you entered. Our physics experts are completely baffled." The boarding party continued deeper into the vessel, discovering room after room of technology that seemed to blend organic and mechanical elements in ways that human science couldn't explain. Some chambers contained what appeared to be control systems, with interfaces that responded to touch by displaying symbols and patterns that shifted too quickly to follow. Marcus set up his portable power unit in what they assumed was the ship's main engineering section. The moment he activated it, the entire vessel came alive. Lights flickered on throughout the corridors, displaying a soft blue glow that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The shifting patterns on the surfaces became more active, cycling through complex sequences that felt almost like a language. "Captain," Dr. Kim called from across the room where she had been examining what looked like a command console. "I think I found something. This display is showing star charts, but they're not like any I've seen before. The scale is enormous. It's showing not just our galaxy, but dozens of others." Elena joined her at the console, studying the three-dimensional, holographic display that had appeared above the surface. The star charts showed familiar constellations, but from perspectives that would require traveling thousands of light-years to achieve. More disturbing were the red markers scattered throughout the displays, indicating something the ancient Corvani had considered important enough to track across multiple galaxies. Marcus called out from his position near the power systems. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy generation from somewhere deeper in the ship. Whatever this thing's power source is, it's not nuclear, fusion, or antimatter. It's something completely new. The energy output is off the charts." As if responding to their presence and growing understanding, the ship began to reveal more of its secrets. Corridors that had seemed empty now displayed holographic interfaces. Rooms that appeared to be storage areas opened to reveal technology that seemed to blend science and art in ways that challenged human comprehension. Dr. Kim made the most startling discovery in what appeared to be the ship's central command area. The room was dominated by a massive spherical display that showed real-time images of space around them. But unlike any human display system, this one seemed to show not just what was happening now, but probability projections of what might happen in multiple possible futures. "Elena, you need to see this," she said, her voice filled with awe. "This isn't just a starship, it's some kind of strategic planning system. The Corvani weren't just warriors or explorers, they were fighting something. Look at these projections." The display showed scenes of massive battles between fleets of ships like the one they were aboard, and something else entirely. The enemy vessels appeared as dark, angular shapes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The battles were taking place not just in normal space, but in dimensions that human physics couldn't adequately describe. Elena studied the projections with growing unease. "Are these historical records or predictions?" "I think they're both," Dr. Kim replied. "The system seems to be showing us what happened to the Corvani Empire and warning us about what might happen again." Marcus had been monitoring their conversation while working on the power systems. "Captain, I'm detecting something else. This ship has been scanning our equipment, our biology, even our ship's computer systems. It's been learning about us since the moment we came aboard." As if responding to their conversation, the central display shifted to show Earth and the surrounding human colonies. The same red markers that had appeared on the galactic charts were now appearing around human space, growing brighter and more numerous with each passing moment. Elena activated her comm system. "Bridge, we need immediate evacuation preparation. Something is coming, and I don't think the Nexari gave us this ship out of generosity. They gave it to us because they know we're going to need it." Before Lieutenant Commander Torres could respond, alerts began sounding throughout the human fleet. Long-range sensors had detected massive objects moving toward human space objects that matched the dark angular shapes they had seen in the Corvani projections. The ancient ship around them responded to the threat by fully activating systems that had been dormant for millennia. The walls became transparent, revealing the true scope of the vessel's interior. Instead of a small, damaged ship, They found themselves aboard a massive warship with weapon systems and defensive capabilities that dwarfed anything in the human arsenal. Elena realized they had been given exactly what they needed, at exactly the moment they needed it. The question was whether they could learn to use it in time, from scrap to legend. 3 days after the discovery, Captain Elena Rodriguez stood in the transformed command center of what was no longer considered a derelict ship. The vessel had revealed its true nature gradually, responding to human presence and interaction in ways that seemed almost alive. Where once there had been empty, corroded spaces, now there were sophisticated control systems, weapon arrays, and defensive mechanisms that operated on principles human science was only beginning to understand. Marcus Chen had barely slept since they had first powered up the ship's systems. His engineering team had expanded to include specialists from across the human fleet, and they were all working around the clock to understand technology that seemed to anticipate their needs. The ship's systems had begun displaying information in English, somehow having learned the language by observing their interactions. "Captain," Marcus called from his position at what they had determined was the main engineering console. I understand why the Nexari couldn't make this work. The ship's systems aren't just technology, they're partially biological. They require living beings to interface with them, and specifically beings with certain neural patterns." Dr. Kim looked up from her research station, where she had been studying the historical records the ship had begun sharing with them. "That explains the Corvani extinction event. According to these records, they weren't just warriors, they were a symbiotic species. They shared neural patterns with their technology. When they died, their ships became dormant." Elena studied the tactical displays that now surrounded the command center. The approaching enemy fleet had grown to enormous proportions, with ships that dwarfed anything in the human arsenal. More disturbing were the reports coming in from the outer colonies, where populations were simply vanishing without distress, calls or signs of battle. "What are we facing?" Elena asked the ship's systems directly. The central display responded by showing detailed analysis of the enemy vessels. Text appeared in English, generated by the ship's AI systems that had learned to communicate with their human crew. The information was troubling. Entity classification. Devourers. Extra-dimensional beings that consume consciousness and life energy. They convert organic matter into construction material for their vessels. The Corvani Empire fought a 1,000-year war against devourer incursions before developing the technology currently integrated into this vessel. Lieutenant Commander Torres joined them from the bridge of the human flagship. "Captain, we've received communications from the Nexari ambassador. He's requesting permission to retreat to a safe distance. Apparently, they've known about this threat for centuries." Elena's anger flared. "They've known? And they let us walk into this blind?" Dr. Kim had been analyzing the Corvani records. "Elena, it's worse than that. According to these historical files, the Galactic community has been dealing with devourer incursions by sacrificing younger species. They identify civilizations that are advanced enough to be useful, but not advanced enough to resist, then guide the devourers toward them, while more established species retreat to safe distances." "We were set up," Marcus said grimly. "The Nexari didn't give us this ship as a gift. They gave it to us because they thought we'd be the next sacrifice, and they wanted to see if we could make their old problem solver work." The ship's AI systems chimed with what sounded almost like approval. "Analysis correct. Galactic civilizations have used sacrifice protocols for over 10,000 years. Previous sacrificed species, the Volani, the Corvani, the Thextar, and 47 others. Survival rate of sacrificed species, 0. Elena felt the weight of humanity's situation settling on her shoulders. They were facing an enemy that had consumed dozens of civilizations, armed with a single ship that previous owners had died trying to use effectively. But as she looked around at her crew, she saw something that gave her hope. They weren't giving up. "Marcus, what's our operational status?" "Better than expected, actually," Marcus replied, consulting his displays. "The ship's systems have been adapting to human neural patterns. Our brains process information differently than the Corvani did, and the ship is modifying its interfaces to match our capabilities. We're actually interfacing with the technology more efficiently than its original designers. Dr. Kim added, the historical records show that the Corvani were primarily warrior philosophers. They approached problems through meditation and ritual. Combat. Humans approach problems through experimentation and innovation. The ship's AI is finding our methods more compatible with its adaptive systems. Elena made her decision. Bridge, signal the fleet. We're taking this ship into battle. Captain, Torres protested. We don't even know how to use the weapon systems. Then we learn, Elena replied. Marcus, can you give me a crash course in Corvani warfare? The next 6 hours were unlike anything in human military history. The ship's AI systems provided accelerated training programs that uploaded information directly into their neural pathways. Elena and her crew learned to interface with weapon systems that could manipulate space-time, defensive shields that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and propulsion systems that allowed travel through folded space. But more importantly, they learned to innovate with the technology in ways the Corvani never had. Where the ancient warriors had used their weapons in ritualized combat patterns, humans began combining systems in unexpected ways. Marcus discovered that the ship's defensive shields could be reversed to create offensive energy projections. Dr. Kim found ways to use the sensor systems as weapons by overwhelming enemy electronics with targeted information streams. When the Devourer fleet finally arrived at the edge of human space, they found something they had never encountered before. A species that refused to follow the established patterns of sacrifice and retreat. Elena stood in the command center as the battle began, watching displays that showed the enemy fleet approaching Earth. The Devourer ships were massive, dark constructs that seemed to absorb light and energy from the space around them. Their assault began with attempts to disable human technology, tactics that had worked against dozens of previous species. But the humans had spent their preparation time doing something the Devourers had never seen before. They had integrated human technology with Corvani systems. When the Devourers tried to corrupt human computer systems, they found themselves facing firewalls designed with quantum encryption protocols that didn't exist in any database. When they attempted to drain energy from human ships, they discovered backup systems using principles their programming couldn't analyze. The modified Corvani warship, now designated the Phoenix by its human crew, engaged the Devourer fleet with tactics that confused and disrupted enemy formations. Instead of the predictable warrior philosopher approach of the Corvani, Elena and her crew used guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run strategies, and coordinated attacks that kept the enemy off balance. The turning point came when Dr. Kim realized that the Devourer's greatest strength was also their weakness. They operated as a collective intelligence, sharing information instantaneously across their entire fleet. But human unpredictability was causing errors in their collective decision-making processes. Elena, Dr. Kim called out over the battle communications, I can overload their collective intelligence network. If we can create enough conflicting data points, their shared consciousness will crash. Elena grinned. Do it. The Phoenix launched, an attack unlike anything seen in galactic warfare. Instead of trying to destroy Devourer ships through conventional weapons, the human crew began broadcasting contradictory information directly into the enemy network. Mathematical paradoxes, philosophical questions without answers, and creative works that challenged logic itself. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Devourer fleet, accustomed to processing the orderly thoughts of warrior philosophers, could not cope with the chaotic creativity of human minds. Their collective intelligence began to fragment, causing individual ships to operate independently and inefficiently. One by one, the massive Devourer vessels began to retreat. For the first time in galactic history, a species targeted for sacrifice had not only survived but had driven off their attackers. In the aftermath of the battle, Ambassador Kethtar requested permission to board the Phoenix. Elena met him in the same airlock where they had first entered the ship, but now the corridors were filled with the hum of active technology and the sense of living partnership between human crew and ancient AI systems. Captain Rodriguez, Kethtar, said, his forearms folded in what Elena had learned was a gesture of respect among his people. The Galactic Council has asked me to extend an invitation. They would like humanity to join them as full members, with all the rights and protections that membership provides. Elena looked around at the ship that had become humanity's salvation, then back at the Nexari ambassador. And what about the next species you decide to sacrifice? What happens to them? Kethtar's silence was answer enough. We'll need to think about your offer, Elena said finally. But right now, we have a galaxy to explore and civilizations to protect. The Phoenix has enough firepower to take on fleets, and humans have enough stubborn creativity to solve problems that others consider impossible. As the Phoenix departed human space, beginning its journey to seek out other species targeted for sacrifice, Elena realized that the Nexari had been right about one thing. They had given humanity exactly what it needed. Not just a ship, but proof that human ingenuity could turn any challenge into an opportunity. The galaxy's deadliest ship was now crewed by the galaxy's most unpredictable species, and that combination was about to change the balance of power throughout the stars. Behind them, Earth's space traffic control received a message that would become legendary throughout human space. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Phoenix. We're going hunting.